Good evening. Welcome to the Lenten Soup Supper and Service series of 2024. This is a decades-long tradition where congregations across Chico come together during the seasons of Lent to share food, to share prayer, to share fellowship, and be one together in our faith. We are blessed this year, for the second year in a row, to have congregation Beth Israel joining us for this series, making it not just ecumenical, but now interfaith. So we celebrate that. Our recently ordained Rabbi Lisa, give it up, will be providing us a teaching this night. But before we do, I want to mention a couple things. First of all, we've swapped, you've obviously figured it out because you're in here, right? We've swapped the schedule of the food and the worship service. So stick around for soup through those doors afterwards. And then if you need the restrooms, go through those glass doors and head straight down the hallway. Also, I want to say the theme for this year is bridging divides through forgiveness. And one of the ways we hope to help make that happen practically is we will be taking an offering at the end of the service. There is a box under the light, under the candle, by the entrance of the church. And the offerings this Lenten season will go to an organization called Healing Across the Divides. And it's an organization that seeks to create peace by providing measurable improved health outcomes for both Palestinians and Israelis. So what they do is they fund initiatives, grassroots initiatives that bring together Israelis and Palestinians for the improved health of both. So some of the examples include they have neonatal classes and prenatal classes for mothers who are both Jewish and Palestinian, and encouraging to learn, how do you care for your baby together? Things like funding community gardens where Israelis and Palestinians can literally create life together. If you'd like to give to that organization, like I said, place your offerings in the offering box. And there's also 3 copies of their annual report from last year if you'd like to learn more about that organization. All right. With that, Congregation Beth Israel.
I'm going to start by singing together. If you don't have this song sheet, they are in the back. So I encourage you to get one or share one with somebody next to you, and we'll begin.
I'll wait a second for a few more people to get their song sheet. We're starting in the, as you might guess, we're starting in the upper left corner. And this is the first verse of Psalm 133 in Hebrew. And we'll go through the words first so you can learn them. They're very easy. Hine ma tov.
Hine ma tov.
Uma naim.
Uma naim.
Hine ma tov uma naim.
Hine ma tov uma naim.
Shevet achim.
Shevet achim.
Gam yachad.
Gam yachad.
Shevet achim gam yachad.
Shevet achim gam yachad.
Hine ma tov uma naim. Shevet achim gam yachad.
Hine ma tov uma naim. Shevet achim gam yachad.
And the melody is a folk melody. You'll pick it up real quick. Hine ma tov uma naim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov uma naim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov uma naim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov uma naim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Ya-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Ya הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. Look, how good and how pleasant is the dwelling of brothers and sisters together.
Amen. Indeed, how good it is to be together and to be together through a shared text, a shared verse from our sacred text together, Hine Mato from Psalms. How amazing it is when friends, brothers, and sisters in our human family find the time. We carved out the time to be together here this evening. And thank you for accommodating our flip of learning first and dinner later. In our community, we find it very hard to regather our people after they've been eating and schmoozing, and so we're going on that from our community. And we have some people here from our community. So I want to introduce myself. I'm Rabbi Lisa Rappaport. Last year when we were here, I said to this group, I sort of spoke something into existence that was going to be anyway, but it was the first time I had sort of said it like this. I said, next year, if you have us back, I'll be a rabbi instead of a student rabbi. So it's amazing to see the passage of time and how that happens. So I'm Rabbi Lisa Rappaport from Congregation Beth Israel, and I'd like to introduce our cantor.
I am Chazan Steve Margolin, and I am the cantor of Congregation Beth Israel.
So thank you all for having us, and thank you, Pastor Ben, for inviting us again and for allowing us to be, I guess, like the kickoff community here. We're honored to be with all of you as interfaith partners, soul friends, who grapple together with deep challenges that we see in our world, whose collective hearts are broken. I think that's why we're all here tonight, because in many ways our collective hearts are broken by witnessing the misunderstandings, the misconceptions, and the deep hatred that sometimes divides our human family. We also share the same collective heart that beats with the desire to repair, to bridge divides. And much of that repair work comes through forgiveness. So both Chazan Steve and I will be sharing brief teachings about possible ways to do that, or teachings from our tradition about that. We're going to take you through very briefly a very abbreviated form of evening prayer in the Jewish tradition. We'll share a little bit at different points about what we're doing and why, and then we'll share our teachings together. Being together lets us connect through our differences. Now, I know that we have so many commonalities that have brought us here together, but there are many ways that we are different. We pray differently, we sing differently, and we have different teachings. So we're here to bring some of who we are to you. So we have come to pray together, to sing, to share, and to listen, and to learn, and then, of course, afterwards, we'll break bread together. One of the things we find, too, is that we can talk about some of the things that we've shared over our meal together. One of the most connecting of all human activities, indeed, is eating and schmoozing together. At least we find that in our community. So at this time, we would like to call all of you into communal prayer, the way we do so in Jewish tradition, in our liturgy. We will chant together, and then we'll share just a brief period of silent reflection and thanksgiving before the grand mystery before whom we stand. So I ask you all to please rise in body or spirit as we bless the source of life together. You'll find this on the right side of your sheet.
As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. And the blessing gives us strength and makes our visions clear. And the blessing gives us peace and the courage to dare. As we bless the source of life,
before this mystery that we have blessed. Take it in, and when you feel ready, you may have a seat. So right now, if you look outside, things have changed since we first got here. We went from afternoon to dusk to evening. We're in a place of liminality, and in Jewish prayer, we bless this very particular time, this changing from one thing into another thing. It's become evening, and this is a holy space between the end of daytime and the beginning of nighttime. It's this in-betweenness, the mixing of lightness and darkness. And additionally, in Jewish time, we mark the beginning of a new day in the evening. Some of you may be aware of that. So in Jewish time, we're at the start of Thursday, so to speak. But I want to just point out some other liminal realms that we're inhabiting right now to show us how we're connected as interfaith partners. So we are waxing from a new moon to a full moon, which will come to us this Saturday. The moon will become full on Saturday. On the Gregorian calendar, we are in the season of Lent, which began last Wednesday and concludes March 28th. And of course, this is a very holy period of time for Christians, culminating with Easter. On March 10th, with the new moon, the holy month of Ramadan begins for our Muslim brothers and sisters. On the Jewish calendar, something very remarkable is going on. We have a period of liminal adjustment. Since the Jewish calendar follows a luni-solar calendar, we have to make these periodic adjustments to ensure that our holidays, which are very much linked to the seasonal time of the land of Israel, we don't want Passover happening in winter, we don't want Hanukkah happening in the spring, so we have to make these adjustments, which very bizarrely means we add a whole nother month to the Jewish calendar. So in Jewish time, we are in Adar 1, which only happens 7 times in a 19-year cycle. So every 2 or 3 years, we add this month, which is this liminal time. And last year when we were together, Easter and Passover were going to be coinciding, but because of this adding of this new month, or this additional month, Passover is far away from Easter this year. And you can feel the liminal changes in the weather and the seasons. Even though it's been very cold and wintry and rainy, you can feel that change in light. You can feel the mosquitoes when they're out. Longer days are upon us. So we feel these changes and the transformation that turns day to night, how the moon is changing, the calendar moves us through holy months that we're connected to in our unique traditions: resurrection, spiritual purity, and redemption. And Chazan Steve will now share an interpretive version of our evening prayer.
We bless you and acknowledge you, Yah, cosmic majesty. Stirring words, the last dollop of yesterday's light into the new day's raven dusk. Opening skillfully, understanding how we thirst for rhyme and reason. Showing us winter slide into spring, spring slip into summer, summer simmer into fall. Spreading out Abraham's seed, stars we cannot number watching over us. Watching, we see in the rolling and roiling that there is order above and below. Pushing past yesterday, bringing us tonight. Joining you in dividing day and night. Naming you, Yah of multitudes, God living and enduring, always guiding. Entering evening, Yah, we bless you and acknowledge you.
One of the essentials of Jewish prayer is that after we call ourselves into communal worship, which we just did, and we bless God for being the maestro of transitions, which Chazan Steve just shared with us, we return to that which is solid and unmovable. So we talked about all these things that are constantly changing. There are things that are unshakable, like God's unbounding love for us and a recognition of the oneness and the unity of all. So we're going to share together an interpretive poetic version of the traditional liturgy, which I'm going to tee up in a moment with melody. And then after that, Chazan Steve will share a short teaching on unity and oneness, which is in place of our Shema prayer, the declaration of God as one. So we're on the song sheet where it says, "We are loved by an unending love." I'm going to give you a feel for the melody, and then we'll sing this together. Ya, 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 ya. Ya, 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 ya.
We are loved by an unending love. We are loved by an unending love.
We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us, even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us, even when we are too embittered to hear. We are loved by an unending love. We are loved by an unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved by an unending love. We are loved by an unending love. Embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled, ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. We are loved by an unending love.
A Jewish man is marooned on a desert island. After a few years, he's rescued, and he shows his rescuers around. And he proudly shows them his house that he's built, and the separate building for the kitchen, and he shows them the library. And they ask him, "What are those two other buildings over there?" And he says, "That one is the synagogue where I belong, and that one is the one I will not be caught dead in." And so dissecting a joke is usually a bad idea, but let's dive in anyway. Why is this funny?
Relatable.
Yeah, first it's funny maybe because you don't expect the person who's marooned on the desert island to be Jewish. So there's that. But like many jokes, the humor here really is in the way we glimpse ourselves in the mirror of the punchline. That's the one where I belong, that's the one I won't be caught dead in. The shiver of recognition is about the pleasure we take in separating ourselves into groups. This is not inherently bad. Indeed, as we just sang a little while ago, look how good and pleasant it is for people to sit together. We're social apes, and we yearn to belong. But we also take pleasure in taking sides against others, in feeling superior and holding grudges and reliving real or perceived slights or worse kinds of harm. This is ego on the march. And my teacher, Jamie, over here teaches that we should always be on the lookout for ego. Me against you, me and my God against you and your God. Of course, ego is not all good or all bad either. We need it to go about our daily lives, especially in our relations with others. But as we see, ego needs to be recognized and controlled. So how do we do that? One answer is by remembering that we are all part of the one with a capital O, and the one is in each and every one of us. However you conceive of this essential unity, whatever you call this oneness that flows through and sustains all the worlds. We overcome the divides and the divisions by remembering that separation is an illusion, that we are at our essence part of one, part of the whole. And we are instructed in the book of Leviticus, and then Matthew and Mark quote Jesus, emphasizing this verse from the Hebrew Bible, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. And this is not just a good idea. It is the essential idea. To get past our divisions, our grievances, our internal doubts, our chosen idols, the way past all of these is to get past the illusion of separation, back to who we are and who we always really are, back to the one. And so each morning and each evening we reaffirm this. Listen, the Holy One is our God, and God is one.
Amen. Shikoach.
Baruch Tiach.
So what a beautiful diving off point to go into a little of the details of how we do keep ourselves separate. The theme of this Lenten series is bridging divides through forgiveness. There's lots of ways to bridge divides, but we have decided to talk about bridging it through forgiveness. And what I'm about to share, we can consider it on a spectrum, from our most personal and intimate relationships all the way to geopolitical realities on the world stage. So bridging any kind of divide through forgiveness. So what is the distance usually about? What keeps us from going closer to repair? And how in the heck can we get to forgiveness? So one thing that gets in the way, as Steve alluded to this a little bit, is bitterness and hostility, this pleasure in othering. We feel we have been wronged. We're waiting for the other to apologize to us, so turning toward the one who has hurt us feels impossible. How often have we heard someone say, or perhaps we ourselves have said, I will never, ever forgive so-and-so as long as I live. What they did is unforgivable. We often feel quite justified for being wronged, and we don't realize that withholding forgiveness is a different kind of sin. This kind of withholding forgiveness can fall in the realm of grudge-bearing or revenge. And Torah has a very clear point of view on this. Chazan Steve chanted the second part of this verse. The first part is, you shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against members of your people. Love your fellow as yourself. Indeed, love your fellow as yourself, and we must work to move closer to each other rather than sever ties and move further away. When we cause harm, we must turn back and take a step closer. When we feel hurt and betrayed, rather than stoke the fire of bitterness, we must turn and take a step closer. We each go as far as we can toward the other. Is this even possible? Especially as the dynamics become more complicated when we involve people beyond just ourselves, groups, sides, factions, coalitions, governments, nations. But for the moment, let's focus on what we do have control over, our own behavior and our own tendency to revenge and grudge-bearing. It's hard to look, but let's see what the sages of the Jewish tradition have to say. Maimonides, who is medieval Spanish commentator, says, regardless of the offense, and this is a tall order, regardless of the offense, revenge is not worth it. You will do much more evil to yourself than the offender did to you. So we each have to figure that out for ourselves, how true that feels to us. As it is often said, holding on to a grudge is like drinking poison and think it's going to harm the other person. Seeking revenge and grudge-bearing is an impurity, something that corrupts the soul, and the rabbis warn sternly against it. Now, for those from our community who have been at our Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur services, you have likely heard what I'm about to share, but it is such a powerful teaching from the Gemara and Tractate Yoma about revenge and grudge-bearing. And it really hits home. The details are different. They're very Talmudic details, but I think you can fill in your own details. For it has been taught, what is revenge and what is bearing a grudge? If one said to his fellow, lend me your sickle, and he replied, no, And tomorrow the second comes to the first and says, "Lend me your axe." And he replies, "I will not lend it to you, just as you would not lend me your sickle." That is revenge. And what is bearing a grudge? If one says to his fellow, "Lend me your axe," and he replies, "No," and on the next day the second asks, "Lend me your garment," and he answers, "Here it is. I'm not like you, who would not lend me what I asked for." That is bearing a grudge. By holding a grudge, we claim moral superiority. We cling to the wrongdoing the person did. We remember and remind them by mentioning it. These shaming blows keep the relationship blocked in a negative cycle of ill will. Who among us has not behaved in exactly the same way? Unfortunately, this sentiment from the Gemara rings true in every era, in every family, in every community, in all of our relationships. And these are the real details in our lives as people. And we also see this on the world stage. In a well-known Hasidic story, a king was quarreling with his son, and in a heated moment of rage, the king exiled the son from the kingdom. And there was distance between them for many years, an unbridgeable divide. But the king's heart finally softened, and he sent his ministers to find his son and bring him home. However, the damage to the relationship was too great, and the son refused to return. He was bearing a grudge. He was bitter and hurt and unwilling to come back. The ministers reported this to the king, and the king instructed the ministers to give the following message to his son: "Return as far as you can, and I will come the rest of the way to meet you." So we don't know how the story ends between the king and the son. The potency is in the possibility of two people attempting to come back to each other, to bridge the divide. When we overcome our own tendency to bear a grudge or seek revenge, we can set down our own toxic baggage and we can move forward. And sometimes that's all it takes, one step toward. But what if it's unsafe to take a step toward the other? That's a real possibility. It isn't always safe to return. Maybe we can take a step closer, not so much to the source of the danger, the place where we have been harmed with no reassurance that it won't happen again, but a step inward, closer to ourselves, a place of self-care and self-love. In any case, one step toward, one step forward, one step that can bridge the divide between self and other, or between self and self. We seek to bridge the divide wherever the divide resides. And when we bring that energy of repair to our relationships, we bring healing. And we'd like now to open up time for a prayer for healing for all of those in our lives that are in need of healing on any level, whether it's physical, emotional, mental. So we'll ask, you can just toss out names, and when the names cease to be tossed out, we'll chant together the El Na Rafana La prayer, which is on the song sheet. So we open it up. Please say out loud the names of those in your life for whom you are praying for healing.
Chazan Jack Kessler, Rabbi Marcia Prager, a rabbi whose name I keep in my heart, Chazan Jessica Leash, Rabbi Nachshon David, Adam Kravatzi, Deanna daughter of Martha.
I'm praying for my friend Rabbi Carol Kane, for Shifra Pride Raffle, and for my cousin Rachel Mizuki. So we'll chant this together. It's a compelling melody, but a simple one, so you'll be able to join in with us. El na refana la, el na refana la, el na refana la, refua shlema. El na refana la, el na refana la, el na refana la, refua shlema. El na refana la, el na refana la, el na refana la, refua shlema. Please, God, heal our bodies. Please, God, heal our minds. Please, God, heal our souls. Please, God, make us whole.
As we enter into evening, our ancestors, and some days we as well, worry about what will happen during the night, whether we'll wake up again. And the rabbis teach that sleep is 60%?
1/60.
1/60th of death. So we worry about the night, we worry about the ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump. And there's a prayer for that. In every evening liturgy, varies a little depending on whether it's the Sabbath or not. And this is on the back of the handout, upper left corner, it says Wings of Peace. And this is an adaptation of the ending of the evening prayer, where we ask the Holy One to spread over us a canopy of peace, a Sukkot Shalom. Ufros aleinu, Sukkot Shalom, Shalom. Spread over us wings of peace, Shalom. Ufros aleinu, Sukkot Shalom, Shalom. Spread over us wings of peace, Shalom. Draw water in joy from the living well. Draw water in joy from the living well. Mayim Chaim, waters of life, Shalom. Ufros aleinu,
As we conclude and prepare to break bread together, share a meal, and continue the conversation about bridging divides through forgiveness, we want to bless each other with Birkat Kohanim, the priestly blessing. I think in the Christian tradition this is called the benediction. Is that correct? Okay. So another shared prayer and text from Numbers. This is one of the oldest prayers in the Jewish tradition. And in this week's Parsha in the Torah, we learn all about the clothing, the beautiful ornamental garb of the high priest. And we know that in modern times we don't have a high priest anymore, and we treat each other as if we are our own high priests, and we see the high priest in each other. So I'd like to invite everybody to rise in body or spirit, and we will bless each other with this very powerful and potent blessing. If you feel comfortable, I invite you to raise your hands up and out so that we can extend this blessing to everybody. So we'll share it in the Hebrew and in the English. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Holy One bless you and protect you. May the Holy One's face shine on you and be kind to you. May the Holy One's face rise up to greet you and give you the greatest gift of all, the gift of shalom, of peace.
May the blessings of God rest upon you. May God's peace abide with you. May God's presence illuminate your heart, now and forevermore.
Ken yehi ratzon, may it be so. Thank you so much for praying with us this evening and for learning with us. And Pastor Ben, any logistical pieces for getting from here to there?
Go straight through those doors. And Rabbi, is there a blessing for soup?
Oh my gosh, we have bread. We have bread.
That's true, we have bread.
So let's say the bless, even though we don't have it here with us.
Pretend.
We're gonna
All right,
pretend.
sure, yeah.
The bread, it's just right over there.
That's
is
right.
The blessing we say over challah, which blesses God for bringing the bounty of the bread from the earth. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Blessed is the Holy One, source of all life, who brings forth bread from the earth. Amen.
Thank you, Congregation Beth Israel, both for this service and for the soup we're about to enjoy.